Chapter 9. Conviction or Compromise. In November 1945, there occurred in Lester's life a meeting of far-reaching significance. Baylor University had decided to present President Harry S. Truman with an honorary degree. Truman was noted, among other things, for his rough language. My husband was chairman of the Baylor Civil Rights Platform Committee, and he felt it was inappropriate for a Baptist college to honor a man who failed to uphold Bible standards and convictions in his daily life. Under strong conviction about this, Lester went before the Baptist General Convention of Texas to propose a motion that would in effect place a restricting hand on Baylor University and advise the school to choose someone else to receive that honorary degree. The convention was divided in its vote, but the final result was that Baylor did award the degree to President Truman as planned. As I think back to that difficult time, I would have to say that this was probably the beginning of the end as far as Lester's loyalty to the denomination was concerned. He had no use for compromise. He felt that a man must remain true to his convictions no matter what the cost. His stand brought much publicity, some good, some bad. He received an inquiry from the A.N. Marquis Company of Chicago, Illinois. The following April, my husband appeared in Who's Who in America. About this same time, he began to receive anonymous phone calls and unsigned hate mail. Still, the church in Corpus Christi continued to grow. Some of the Baptist brethren were not too friendly. Some did not understand the issues at stake, nor Lester's deep convictions. Requests to hold revival meetings came less frequently. Lester was no longer being called upon for committee work in the Baptist General Convention of Texas. But college friends he had known well soared ahead in their positions of responsibility within the convention. My husband was paying a price for his convictions. "Marie," he confided, "the grass withereth, the flower fadeth, but the word of our God shall stand forever. I must stand on what I believe the Word is saying to me." To the faithful radio listeners, he could say, "I've been visiting Brother David in 2 Samuel 22, and I've heard him recite his psalm of thanksgiving. David's soul was filled with praise for what the Lord had done. Along with him, I too can say, 'The Lord is my rock, and my fortress, and my deliverer. The God of my rock, in him will I trust. He is my shield and the horn of my salvation, my high tower and my refuge, my Savior. Thou savest me from violence. God is my strength, my power, my lamp, my buckler.'" What a glorious testimony we have in the Word coming from the lips of a man who had gone through deep waters. He had seen the members of his own family turn against him. He had been forced to leave the palace and live in exile. But in the end, the Lord gave the victory. No wonder David said, "In my distress I called upon the Lord, and cried to my God. And he did hear my voice out of his temple. He drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy, and from them that hated me, for they were too strong for me. He brought me forth also into a large place. He delivered me because he delighted in me." The secret of David's deliverance is in these verses. "For I have kept the ways of the Lord, and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his judgments were before me, and as for his statutes, I did not depart from them. For thou art my lamp, O Lord, and the Lord will lighten my darkness. For by thee I have run through a troop. By my God have I leaped over a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is tried. He is a buckler to all them that trust in him." My husband was being pressured to let up in his stand. He was being urged to back up and even give up. Many times I saw his cheeks wet with tears as he saw lifetime friends slip away. One friend wrote and asked for money back that he had invested in the radio ministry. "I've made a bad investment," he wrote. My husband sent the money back. But 2 years later, that same man sent it to the ministry again, saying he had been wrong and wanted to support the kind of gospel my husband was faithfully preaching. "I cannot beat a retreat," my husband would say, "nor compromise the message. Let's just thank God and take courage." For 6 years he held his firm in his stand. Then in 1954 he was removed from the station KWBU because he was considered too controversial. Lester said at that time, "This is the most crushing disappointment in all of my 21 years of ministry. In some ways, it seems that we have reached the end of our gospel trail." My husband is human, and he was deeply hurt. But the Lord knew this ultimatum was coming. The station was owned and operated by the Baptist General Convention of Texas. In the Lord's providence, precious friends had given and loaned to us $50,000 to go on 3 stations in Houston, San Antonio, and Fort Worth. For almost 11 years, Lester had been living with a microphone around his neck, getting out the messages via radio. And now God in His goodness was going to see to it that the program was kept on the air uninterrupted. The Fort Worth program did not materialize at that time, but there were numerous others in the area that began to open up. Instead of quitting or curtailing the broadcast work, Lester announced, "We will, with God's leadership, press on." A change in station policy conveniently removed him from another station. Obviously, the devil and his host didn't want the Family Altar program on the air. Letters were coming to him relating miraculous conversion experiences. One such report came from Houston, where a woman convicted of murder heard the program from her jail cell and asked Christ to save her. With results like that, we knew Satan's tack would continue. Not many months later, the KWBU station was put up for sale. The owners had lost $70,000 in 1 year and were anxious to sell. The price, however, was $300,000. "We don't have it," Lester told me. I already knew that. But in his next breath, he added, "But with the help of God and His people, we'll get it." I knew that too. Such was the spirit of my husband, regardless of the circumstances. I shall never forget when the lawyer, Harry Dobbs, and I had to go to the bank and sign papers to negotiate the loan for the purchase of the station. Lester was out of town, and $25,000 was needed as earnest money. Another $100,000 was needed 90 days later. On the last day, Lester had all of it but $7,250. In the last hour, all he needed was $250. 45 minutes before the deadline, it was all there. Others became stockholders and actually became the station's owners. But my husband was the vehicle God chose to use to get that station into the right hands. Today, the station is still in operation with the call letters KCTA. Know Christ, the answer. In most areas of the country, the Family Altar program is aired twice daily and once on Sunday afternoons. Support for the radio ministry came in strange and unexpected ways. One listener dedicated 20 acres of his land to the work. In one season, more than $20,000 worth of produce was sold from that dedicated soil. When my husband shared this on the broadcast, he said, "Some of you are hearing the gospel because one consecrated farmer dedicated some acres to the preaching of the gospel." That sparked a lot of interest among listeners who responded with creative projects to help get the word out. One lady had what she called consecrated hens and gave her egg money. Another farmer had a cow from which came 1 calf each year. The cow sent out many broadcasts. A mother wrote, "You tell it, we'll pay it," and she and her daughter have been among the most loyal supporters of the program. In this work, my husband would tell listeners, "I've been reminded time after time that we are not blessed for our successes, but for our faithfulness."